You're watching NBC5 News at 10.
Now at 10, a statewide alert putting the safety of elevators everywhere in question.
There's a problem right there.
All stemming from a horrific accident right here in North Texas.
She's suffered severe hypoxic brain damage. She's had seizures.
Tonight, NBC5 Investigates digs into what led up to the incident.
In hindsight, do you regret not modernizing that elevator?
Absolutely.
And what hospital administrators say they would do differently.
Our top story tonight impacts everyone across Texas. A statewide safety alert warns that elevators, especially those with a certain kind of brakes, might not be safe. Good evening, I'm Meredith Land.
And I'm Brian Curtis. The warning comes with a newly released report blaming a brake failure for an incident at JPS Hospital in Fort Worth that severely injured a nurse. Tonight, NBC5 Investigates has obtained documents telling the story of what led up to that horrific incident and what it may say about the safety of elevators everywhere. Our senior investigative reporter, Scott Friedman, has that story just ahead.
But first, Scott Gordon is digging into this new report that's raising alarm for all Texans tonight.
State inspectors released this video that shows them examining elevator 29 at JPS Hospital, the same elevator that crushed nurse Karen Stratford 5 months ago and left her with lifelong injuries.
There's a problem right there.
The problem? They blamed badly maintained brakes that failed, saying there were no visible signs of lubrication on the brake sleeve.
Well, it's consistent with what we've seen so far.
The nurse's attorney, Frank Bransom, is suing the hospital's former maintenance company, ThyssenKrupp, also known as TKE. He took his own photos of the brake to use as evidence.
See the rust? And the inspector found the shoe was worn. And there should not be rust on brake shoes. And the reason is they need to be oiled, and you need to have a lubricant around this brake system, which just wasn't there.
Meanwhile, inspectors are issuing a statewide warning, urging building owners to look closely at brakes, especially on older elevators with so-called drum brakes, like the one at JPS.
After what happened to Ms. Stratford merely going to work and riding up to a floor to provide nursing services, it makes me think when I get on an elevator, and I assume it would make everybody else.
We reached out to the elevator company TKE. A spokesman says the company has not had a chance to review this report and has no comment. JPS says the report shows TKE wasn't doing its job. Brian and Meredith.
All right, Scott, and tonight hundreds of pages of records show what led up to that horrific accident.
NBC5 Investigates has obtained emails suggesting JPS Hospital's elevator system was in chaos, with elevators constantly braking for at least a year before that incident. Here's senior investigative reporter Scott Friedman. Scott?
Brian and Meredith, tonight one veteran elevator inspector tells us what happened at JPS could happen in many buildings today. Records show for more than a year, hospital staff repeatedly questioned the contractor hired to maintain the elevators, complaining of breakdowns and delays in repairs. And while the two sides went back and forth, people got hurt.
You step through the doors, press the buttons, and never imagine what could go wrong. On January 20th, nurse Karen Stratford was boarding elevator 29 at JPS Hospital. With the doors still open, the elevator kept moving, crushing her body.
She's suffered severe hypoxic brain damage. She's had seizures.
Now, emails obtained by NBC5 Investigates show elevator 29 was just one of many with problems long before that incident. For at least a year, the hospital complained to its elevator contractor about a slew of broken elevators, the two sides sometimes pointing fingers as the breakdowns continued.
One industry expert says it's a familiar story these days, and it's putting passengers at risk.
None of this surprises you.
None of it surprises me.
You see this a lot.
I see this a lot.
But first, jump back to January 2018, a year before the incident on elevator 29. JPS sends this email to ThyssenKrupp, the company the hospital hired to maintain its elevators. A hospital staffer writes, "My frustration is that I have so many elevators down with no end in sight, and when one fails, it takes forever to get it fixed. Some have been down for weeks, including elevator 29. ThyssenKrupp responds at one point suggesting the hospital needs to upgrade or modernize some of its elevators, saying they're worn out. We want to fix these elevators correctly, not just put a Band-Aid on them.
We didn't Band-Aid fix these elevators. If anybody Band-Aided them, it was ThyssenKrupp.
JPS Chief Operating Officer Bill Whitman says the hospital did spend money to modernize some elevators each year, and he says ThyssenKrupp never told the hospital any elevator posed a danger.
They never gave me any kind of proposal and said, these elevators are at risk. Your patients, your staff, your visitors are at risk. You must modernize this elevator.
Still, Whitman wishes he could turn back time. Emails show one elevator on the list considered for modernization was elevator 29.
Do you think upgrading that elevator might have prevented that incident?
It might have.
In hindsight, do you regret not modernizing
Oh,
that elevator?
Absolutely. I have no crystal ball. I wish I could go back to January 19th and do something different.
Whitman says he also wishes he had cut ties with ThyssenKrupp a year earlier. Internal emails show the elevator troubles continued through 2018.
In one case, an elderly person suffered a head injury when an elevator in the parking garage failed to level with the floor. Still, the hospital kept its contract with ThyssenKrupp until this year, when elevator 29 injured Karen Stratford. ThyssenKrupp, one of the world's largest elevator companies, declined to comment for this report. In an earlier statement, the company said it made all repairs in a timely fashion and that JPS has kept us in the dark on details associated with this incident. It is highly unusual for a customer to not only withhold this type of important information from its elevator service provider, but to express any partnership concerns through the media before contacting us. ThyssenKrupp has also accused the hospital of using its own staff to fix elevators and sent this letter to JPS 9 days before Stratford was injured, warning repairs performed by untrained individuals can put the riding public at risk. The hospital denies doing that. How sad is it to you to see a situation that starts like this with months of back and forth, and then it ends very tragically with someone severely injured?
It's very sad. It's very sad, and you see it more often than you'd like to admit.
Elevator engineer Sheila Sweat is a consultant who's worked for elevator companies and building owners. She says as elevators become more high-tech, maintenance companies sometimes struggle to keep up with complex repair calls.
They're just overloaded, 100%.
Meanwhile, building owners often feel stuck because elevator maintenance contracts can be hard to get out of.
It sounds like the public is really caught in the middle.
They are.
And is that jeopardizing safety?
I would say yes.
We assume that the elevators are safe.
Hisashi and Lynn Nikaido want the industry to do better. Their son Toshi, a medical resident, was killed when an elevator at a Houston hospital malfunctioned, decapitating him when he became trapped in the doors.
Only when an accident occurs then we are brought back to reality. This is only a machine. Machine could have failed.
At JPS, elevator troubles continue today. When we arrived for our interview recently, 2 elevators in the parking garage were out of service. A new maintenance company just started in April, while the staff still struggles to understand how something that seemed so simple became a threat.
I will take this to my grave. This has been catastrophic for this organization, for me personally, for the staff.
The state investigators report released today points out elevator 29 was an older model that did not have a backup emergency braking system. Tonight, the state says it is continuing to investigate what, if any, enforcement action should be taken in this case. Meanwhile, Brandon Meredith, Karen Stratford is now at a rehab hospital. An attorney for her family says she has suffered long-term brain damage.
Disturbing story. Thank you, Scott.
Troubling. Scott Gordon, you talked to some people on the street about this new report. Are they worried?
They are worried, Meredith, but I think the truth is that a lot of people simply take elevators for granted.
I work on the 47th floor, so it's not like I could walk up all that way, so I just have to kind of go with it, you know?
Most people do that, yeah. Just think that they're gonna get there with no problem.
And you?
12 floors I can walk. So if something happens, I'm okay.
So it's not like most of us can stop riding elevators altogether. We need them, but I think a lot of people are going to take notice of this report.
Yeah, not realistic. All right, Scott Gordon, thank you, and Scott Friedman as well.
Right now at NBCDFW.com, you can read all about the investigation, plus an extended interview with an elevator victim's family. Search elevator on our website. New video just into the newsroom. It shows a hit-and-run driver in Garland checking on the man he just hit before driving away. It happened at 12:45 this afternoon on Action Street. Tonight, the victim is in critical condition. The suspect drove a dark blue minivan that suffered heavy damage on the passenger side. If you recognize him or the van, please call police.
A North Texas lawmaker is defending his stance on vaccines after a Twitter battle with a doctor. At one point, Jonathan Stickland referred to sorcery in the exchange. In one tweet, Stickland said, quote, "Vaccines are dangerous. Don't you agree?" Stickland sent us a statement this evening saying, quote, "I am not anti-vaccine. I believe all healthcare decisions should be made between an individual and their doctor, with the parent making the ultimate decision for their child."
The leader of Visit Dallas, Philip Jones, stepped down today amid controversy. The city released an audit of the tourism group back in February. That report was highly critical of how Visit Dallas handled its multi-million-dollar budget, much of which comes from taxpayers.
New tonight, Dallas County District Attorney John Creuzot is pledging $100,000 toward a new homeless shelter in an effort to keep people out of jail. This announcement came just after Dallas City Council members unanimously approved the Salvation Army shelter to be built in Northwest Dallas. Candace Sweat joins us live with the story tonight. Candace?
Meredith, this 20-acre site will soon become a shelter for some 600 people. D.A. Creuzot said he spoke with Salvation Army leaders about making sure there's space for people who might otherwise go to jail. City council members tonight applauded everyone involved with passing this project, as well as Creuzot's willingness to address homelessness in Dallas. Creuzot pledged the money with the request that the city would change its practices and move people who don't pose a threat to the shelter instead of the county jail.
The jail has become the default location for people who are nuisances, who are mentally ill, who are homeless, who are drug addicted, and that is unacceptable.
And we know that the DA's plan to address what he's called mass incarceration has been met with criticism and contention. But tonight, city council members applauded his efforts as he addressed homelessness. Brian.
Thank you, Candace. One of the suspects in yesterday's deadly school shooting in Colorado faced a judge today, hanging his head.
I need an outline answer. No.
18-year-old Devin Erickson and a 16-year-old classmate are accused of bringing pistols to campus, killing one student and injuring 8 more. 18-year-old Kendrick Castillo charged toward Erickson to protect his classmates. He died just 3 days before graduation.
Kendrick was definitely one of the people who should have survived. Out of everybody there, he was really the best of us.
3 other students, hailed as heroes today, helped rush the shooters before police arrived. The school is shut down at least through the end of the week. Life behind bars plus 20 years. That is the sentence for Robert Fabian, convicted in the murder of his girlfriend, Keller native Zuzu Verk. A jury in Caldwell County handed down that decision today. Life for the murder and the extra 20 years for evidence tampering. Fabian reported Verk missing back in 2016. Her remains were later found. Fabian will not be eligible for parole for 30 years.
The city of Fort Worth honored its fallen police officers tonight at the annual ceremony had a deeper meaning following the death of Corporal Garrett Hull last fall. Alice Barr shows us how the police family remembers its own.
Oh, sing. A flag raised, a silent salute, and a list of names.
Ronald Glenn Turner, 12/20/1978. James C. Gall, 1/10/1979.
These are the rituals of saying goodbye. Jenna Frito was 3 years old when her father, Officer Dwayne Frito, was hit and killed by a drunk driver while on duty. Tonight, she honors him through timeless ritual.
I do miss him, but I don't miss him as a person. I miss him as a figure because I didn't really remember him in my life.
The police family is here to be sure we all do the work of remembering together.
There will always be open arms in this police department for each and every one of you. You will always be a part of our family, and we will never forget.
The loss is especially fresh for the family of Corporal Garrett Hull, who was shot and killed in September while he and his team stopped 3 armed robbers.
And our daddy and our beloved Garrett W. Hull.
But in their pain, their family only grows stronger with fellow widows there to step in.
I had another Fort Worth widow, Teresa Nava, when she came over to my house. It was almost like an instant peace, like I knew she knew what I was feeling.
Tonight they stand side by side, the survivors of sacrifice and the thankful.
We are duty bound with love and joy to surround you always.
Who will never let them go. In Fort Worth, Alice Barr, NBC5.
Officers and recruits for the Dallas Police Department also lined up and saluted today to honor the memories of all fallen law enforcement officers.
New at 10, Denver is now the first city in the U.S. to decriminalize the psychoactive chemical in magic mushrooms. Voters narrowly passed that measure today. Psilocybin has been illegal since the 60s, when it was widely known as a recreational drug. But in recent years, some studies have found that it has positive effects on anxiety and depression for cancer patients. Look at this next video here. More than 1,000 weapons, ranging from pistols to rifles, were seized from a Los Angeles house today. Police pulled them all out into the driveway to take inventory. One person was detained. Police were acting on a search warrant after receiving a tip that someone was making and selling weapons at that home.
Request denied. Dallas City Council has rejected Atmos Energy's request for a rate hike. Atmos says it needs the $10 million to replace old pipes. The city says the pipes should have been replaced long ago. The company began replacing lines in northwest Dallas after 3 explosions in just one neighborhood. 12-year-old Michelita Rogers was killed. A man was swept away by rising waters in downtown Austin this afternoon. His body has been recovered tonight in Ladybird Lake. Police reported seeing him floating downstream, but they were unable to save him. New at 10, all of the recent rain we've had may cause a problem you haven't really thought about: higher home prices.
The wet weather is slowing construction, pushing back projects by a month or more, and that can cost you. Allie Spilliards explains.
It's frustrating.
In this little corner of East Dallas,
It's basically, the street is a glorified driveway.
Alan Hoffman has big plans, though lately his vision's been a little murky.
I can't see where it's at. It's underwater.
Which has unfortunately been the story for nearly a month on this site where big rigs have sat idle.
It dries out, and then by the time it's dry, it rains again.
And future home sites await the dirt that will eventually form their foundations.
The frustrating part is you want to get the product out. Bring it to market, get the houses available. There's a lot of people waiting for them.
Last year, DFW builders broke ground on 34,750 houses, making it the nation's top market. But as Mother Nature threatens to slow the trend, the Dallas Builders Association says a basic rule of economics is sure to kick in.
When you have a lot of demand and not enough supply, prices go up, consumers pay more.
On top of that, delays are forcing builders like Hoffman to pay more interest on construction loans, which ultimately trickle down to the families who will eventually live here.
That street we're pouring over there is Rainwater Place.
On an aptly named street he hopes isn't also an omen of Mother Nature's future plans.
We're not in charge. It's in charge.
In Dallas, Allie Spilliards, NBC5.
2 roads in Fort Worth are still closed due to flooding after this morning's storms. The city's Office of Emergency Management is asking drivers to avoid the 35th Street near Angle Avenue and Granbury Road near Summer Meadows area. This morning, the fire department responded to more than 30 high water calls all across Fort Worth.
All right, Rick, are we drying out just for a tish?
Yeah, we're dry tonight. We're dry tomorrow. Rain chance start going up again Friday.
Weekend?
Part of it. Part of it. But you know what? Mother's Day looks great. We'll focus on that. Hey, here are the rain totals we've had since midnight. And we talked about 1 to 2 inches on average across North Texas. I think that seems pretty reasonable. But you'll immediately see some spots were over the 1 to 2 inch average. TCU had over 3 inches. Kaufman, had over 3 inches. Meridian, 3.5. Big time rain. Mineral Wells about 2 inches out there. Lancaster 2. Love Field had 2.5. DFW 1.9. Almost 2 inches of rain. Meacham Airport about 1.5 inches. Terrell 2.3. Look at east central Texas. Mineola 4.5. Mount Pleasant had over 3 inches of rain. So it was a good soaking. Somebody asked me, are we still any drought conditions? Oh, no. Oh, heavens, no. Those have been gone, and they're not coming back anytime soon. Well, I probably shouldn't have said that. Maybe I jinxed it. So far this month, we've had 3.39 at DFW. For the first 8 days of May, over 120 years, that's the 10th wettest, May 1st through May 8th. How we doing on the year? Over 15 inches. That's almost 2.5 inches above normal. And the rain, well, we'll get a break in it through the day tomorrow. Cooler than normal for the next few days. That's right, you'll feel that. Rain is likely Friday night, Saturday morning. I think Saturday afternoon dries out, but Mother's Day looks spectacular. Here's the S-band radar. First look, you don't think you see anything, but hey, there's developing showers and storms off to the southeast. Palestine, you're getting a little bit of rain. That extends up close to the Tyler area, up through Longview. That's all going to stay east of us tonight. Then we have a lone wolf out here. This thunderstorm has up to golf ball size hail with it. It's sliding southeast, but it's likely going to fall apart before it ever gets close to us. Temperatures tomorrow morning in the 50s and 60s. Big temperature spread tomorrow afternoon thanks to a cold front coming in. 80s to the southeast, but a lot of us will be in the 60s and 70s. There's our front tomorrow morning. It sweeps on through. I think tomorrow's kind of a cloudy day. It'll be a cool afternoon. Friday, dry to start. There's Friday evening, but then we start to see the rain moving back in by Saturday morning. There's lunchtime on Saturday, and then Saturday afternoon it slides off to the east. So part of the weekend will have some rain, but I think we'll have several dry hours as well. Tonight, mostly cloudy. Watch out for a little patchy fog. 65 for the low. Tomorrow, call it mostly cloudy, up to 73. Those temperatures kind of stall out as that cold front comes in. A northwest wind 10 to 20 miles per hour. Then Friday, a chance for showers late in the day. I think much of the day on Friday is dry, but especially Friday night into Saturday morning, kind of wet and then drying out. There's our beautiful 77 on Sunday, and Monday about 81, low 80s as we go into next week as well. So, guys, back over to you.
Thank you, Rick. Sports Director Newey Scruggs is here.
Ezekiel Elliott making some headlines today.
Yes, the All-Pro running back is being praised for an act of kindness. We'll talk about that, how Zeke is helping a family in need. Plus, we'll share some interesting comments with Stephen Jones as he tries to sign three of his star players to long-term deals.